The year was 1817, in the quiet and isolated town of Adams, Tennessee. John Bell, a well-respected farmer, lived a peaceful life with his family until something unexplainable began to haunt them, a force that would torment them for years, and become known as one of the most infamous hauntings in American history. It started innocently enough. John Bell spotted a strange animal lurking in the fields one evening. He described it as having the body of a large dog, but with the head of a rabbit, an unnatural combination that sent a shiver down his spine. Bell shot at the creature, but it simply vanished into thin air. That same night, as the Bell family sat together, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed outside their cabin, yet when they investigated, no one was there. These unsettling encounters quickly escalated. The Bells began hearing strange scratching sounds at night, scraping against their walls as if claws were trying to break through. At first, they believed it to be wild animals, but no creature could explain the constant knocking, pounding, and the sound of dragging chains that soon followed. Worse yet, the disturbances were not limited to sounds. Blankets were yanked off sleeping family members, furniture was overturned, and dishes shattered for no apparent reason. The Bell family was terrified but unable to find a source. The children, especially John's youngest daughter Betsy, became the primary target. Betsy would wake up in tears, her face red with welts from invisible slaps, and her hair pulled violently by an unseen force. It was as if something had taken a personal vendetta against the poor girl. Gradually the spirit, which soon made its presence known to the family, began to communicate. One fateful night, after a particularly loud and unsettling disturbance, the family heard a voice, disembodied yet unmistakably clear, speaking to them from the darkness. Initially it was nothing but muttering, low and almost unintelligible. Then it began to respond to questions, mock them, and laugh with a chilling glee. The voice introduced itself as Kate, claiming to be the spirit of a neighbor woman who had once cursed John Bell. The entity's presence became infamous, known far and wide as the Bell Witch. As time passed, Kate's malicious intent became clear. She announced her purpose: the destruction of John Bell and his family. The Bell Witch tormented John relentlessly. He suffered from violent fits. His throat would tighten as though an invisible hand were choking him, and he grew weaker with each passing day. The voice constantly taunted him, saying, "I will kill you, John Bell." Word of the Bell Witch haunting spread throughout Tennessee, drawing curious visitors, some of whom came to see the supernatural terror for themselves. The most famous of these visitors was Andrew Jackson, who would later become the President of the United States. Jackson, hearing of the haunting, decided to investigate. He arrived with a group of soldiers, but the moment they approached the Bell farm, their wagon stopped inexplicably. The horses could not move it forward, as though an unseen force was holding them in place. After hours of trying, Jackson reportedly shouted, "By the Eternal, I'd rather face the British again than the Bell Witch." That night, Jackson's men experienced the full wrath of the entity. Some were slapped, others were kicked, and terrifying noises filled the house. By morning, Jackson had enough. He and his men left the farm, never to return. Over the years, the haunting intensified. Betsy Bell became the primary target of the witch's malice. Each night her covers were yanked away, and she was pinched, slapped, and beaten by an unseen entity. Betsy's engagement to Joshua Gardner seemed to infuriate the witch even more. The Bell Witch demanded that Betsy end the engagement, threatening severe consequences if she refused. Under immense pressure and fear, Betsy eventually broke off the engagement, hoping the witch would cease tormenting her family. But Kate's ultimate vengeance was yet to unfold. In December 1820, John Bell fell mysteriously ill. He experienced convulsions, paralysis, and a gradual decline in his health. On the morning of December 20th, he was found lifeless in his bed. Nearby, a strange vial containing an unknown black liquid was discovered. When the family asked the entity what the liquid was, the disembodied voice laughed, saying, "I gave him that dose. I fixed him good." The vial was tested on a cat, which died instantly. The Bell Witch claimed responsibility for John Bell's death, fulfilling her long-standing threat. After his burial, the witch's voice echoed through the cemetery, singing hymns and laughing, a final insult to the family. Though the witch's activities diminished after John Bell's death, she did not leave entirely. She continued to harass Betsy for several more years before finally growing quiet. However, before she left, the witch made a chilling promise. She vowed to return in 7 years, and true to her word, strange occurrences began again in 1828, though far less intense than before. To this day, many believe the Bell Witch's curse still lingers in Adams, Tennessee. The Bell Witch Cave, located near the site of the original Bell Farm, has become a focal point for those seeking a glimpse of the supernatural. Visitors report hearing whispers, seeing shadowy figures, and experiencing an overwhelming sense of dread. Some say the Bell Witch never truly left, and that disturbing her resting place could bring the curse upon anyone brave, or foolish, enough to challenge it. The Bell Witch haunting remains one of the most well-documented and terrifying hauntings in history, a dark reminder that some spirits never find peace.
I didn't understand Freddy's excitement or why he shoved the object in my face. Halloween night in '87 wasn't as bright as it is today. "It's a picture," he yelled, spitting in my face. "Look, look!" I put my pillowcase of candy down and gently grabbed his wrist to see what all the fuss was about. A Polaroid picture of Freddy in his sad pirate costume. But when I looked closer, I froze. The Freddy in the photo was nothing like the boy in front of me. His face was charred, his skin burnt off, and his eyes melted into nothing. Freddy snatched the picture back, grinning. "Isn't it cool?" He studied the photo, holding it up like a prize. "It's like magic, man. Best Halloween ever, right? It's cool, right?" He wouldn't stop pestering me for approval until I gave in. "Yeah, Freddy, it's cool. Where'd you get it?" "You know Mr. Malcolm's house? The guy with the super green lawn? The one who tells weird jokes at the bus stop? That guy?" Freddy nodded, missing my sarcasm. Everyone avoided Mr. Malcolm's place. The guy gave off a creepy vibe, always inviting kids in for candy and a chat. Hopefully no one took him up on that offer. "Yeah," Freddy continued. "But there's this young guy on the porch, maybe his nephew or something. He's wearing this freaky demon mask and he's got a camera. He takes your picture and it comes out all crazy like mine." "Whoa, slow down," I said. Freddy had some kind of condition, something with his heart, I think. The teachers warned us to keep him calm, so I did. "It's awesome, Freddy, just breathe." I held his hand and he started to settle. "Thanks, man. Want to see?" I hesitated but nodded. The photo freaked me out, but I couldn't resist. I didn't want to miss out on something cool. When we got to Mr. Malcolm's, the line of kids stretched down the block. There must have been 50 of them waiting for their picture. The guy on the porch wore this thin mask with horns that seemed to grow from his head, jagged teeth jutting out of his mouth. He'd take a picture, place it on a rack beside him and wait. Polaroids take time to develop, and this guy didn't rush. After every snap, he'd just sit cross-legged on the porch and stare at the kid. Some kids tried to talk to him, but he didn't say a word, just watched. One boy started crying, and his parents dragged him away before he could get his photo. Freddy eventually left, yawning, but I stayed. A couple of my friends, May and Vicky, were still there too. They had their photos already, and I asked to see them. I wish I hadn't. May's picture was horrifying. Her body was ripped open, intestines spilling out, bones exposed. Only her pink princess dress confirmed it was her. Vicky's was worse. Her body was tied up, torn apart, and surrounded by other mutilated corpses. "Cool, huh?" Vicky grinned. "Like something out of Freddy Krueger." "You've never even seen Freddy Krueger," May shot back. "Neither had I, but I figured this was just movie stuff. I wasn't ready for it, but tried not to let it show." By the time it was my turn, it was late. I should have been home hours ago, but now I was the last kid left. "Don't smile," the man growled, raising the camera. I froze, adjusting my expression. He snapped the photo, then sat down to watch me. The wind rattled the leaves and an eerie stillness settled over us. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Something was wrong with the mask. I couldn't see his eyes, just black, oily voids. Panic churned in my stomach. "I think I need to go," I whispered, stepping back. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist and squeezing hard. "I'll pick it up tomorrow," I said, my voice shaking. He didn't let go. His face, his mask, moved inches from mine. No sound came from him, not even breathing. "Please," I begged, "I want to go home." Then between us, he held up the developing Polaroid. The image slowly appeared, him in the devil mask and me limp in his grip, my face drained of life. I screamed, yanking free and stumbling onto the walkway. He tossed the photo at me, and I watched in horror as more details emerged. Blood soaked my costume and my hair was matted with gore. He'd done more than strangle me. I crawled backward, trembling. He didn't chase me, but he didn't need to. He knew he could catch me if he wanted to. "I'll see you next year," he whispered as I ran. I didn't stop until I was home, collapsing into my mum's arms. My dad went straight to Mr. Malcolm's house with a bat and called his brothers. They found Mr. Malcolm dead, naked in his chair. But the man with the mask was long gone. The police never saw him. Some kids still had their photos, like Freddie, May and Vicky. But Freddie's burned up that Christmas when his house caught fire. He and his family didn't make it. Vicky disappeared before her 19th birthday, and May jumped off a building last year. Now my son's 5 and he wants me to take him trick-or-treating this year, but I know that man is still waiting for me.